Coming up tonight on Fifth Third Business Beat, demolition could rob this Cincinnati neighborhood of more than half of the buildings that make it unique. An aviation company has plans to make Lunken Airport its base of operation. A group gets recommendations on how to boost leadership development for women and girls. Procter & Gamble makes some changes from the top down. Business Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer talks about some of them. For 140 years, this local company has been stitching together our national symbol. Michael Heaton, president of Enterprise Vending, joins Gehring Center president Larry Grip for the Gehring Center Report. Estelle McNair with Franciscan Haircuts from the Heart tells how corporate help and volunteers help growth. Fifth Third chief investment strategist John Augustine has the weekly economic report. And Greg Lalonde, CEO of TripleFin, joins Doug Bolton for Publishers Beat.
Fifth Third Business Beat is brought to you in part by Fifth Third Bank and Cincinnati Bell.
Hello, I'm Brian Patrick. Welcome to Fifth Third Business Beat for Friday, June 12th, 2009. On the front page of the Business Courier this week, preservationists fight to save the historic character of Over the Rhine. It's a battle that's taken them to City Hall and pitted them against the city school district. This is one of the buildings generating concern and controversy. Cincinnati Public Schools owns it, and it wants to tear it down as part of its renovation and expansion of Rothenberg School, which sits behind it. CPS says it's putting in air conditioning at the school, and the service equipment would be easier to access and maintain if it were located where this building now stands. The building was condemned in January. Preservationists argue it's in such bad shape because CPS let it sit open to the elements since buying the building in 2007 for the purpose of tearing it down.
Part of the reason that we're putting so much effort into creating awareness about the neighborhood and the importance of saving it is that if we are to lose another 4 buildings in this neighborhood, we will have reached the point of more than 50% of the original building stock having been lost. And that's a critical tipping point.
Over the Rhine is one of the largest, most intact 19th century urban historic districts in the United States. It is not considered a National Historic Landmark because too much of the neighborhood has already been destroyed. There are now 500 vacant buildings and 72 condemned buildings. Another 238 have been ordered vacated. Procter & Gamble will soon have a new CEO. Bob McDonald has been named to succeed A.G. Lafley. McDonald is currently P&G's chief operating officer. He's held that position since it was created for him in 2007. Lafley served as CEO for 9 years. He will remain as chairman after the transition, which takes place at the end of the fiscal year, July 1st. We'll have more on the changes taking place at P&G a little bit later. A company that now operates out of the Butler County Regional Airport wants to relocate to Lunken Airport. Empower Aviation would bring 75 jobs right away, with several dozen more being added in a few years. Owner Rick Brunsman plans to invest $5 million to build a 20,000 square foot headquarters and a 30,000 square foot maintenance hangar. The 2-year-old company would be the 3rd fixed-base operator at Lunken.
We did not know this, but until recently, Lunken does not have an FAA approved 145 maintenance provider. We're going to be the first on the scene here with that.
Empower Aviation was the only bidder for the right to establish an aviation maintenance and fuel sale facility on city-owned land at the end of Airport Road. A study by the Women's Fund of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation shows that this area is lacking leadership development programs aimed at emerging career women. A select group of community leaders and representatives were invited to a luncheon this week to hear the recommendations from the study. Among them, putting together a corporate forum that would bring together companies that are already or are interested in working on leadership development.
Closely related to that is putting together a corporate toolkit that will also help them do that. Many of the ways in which you would, for example, put a business case together for this are quite similar from industry to industry, company to company. And also one other area is for girls and putting together a toolkit for middle and high school girls.
The Women's Fund is working to raise about $100,000 to fund the leadership development efforts. About 25% of that total has been raised so far. Back to the front page of the Business Courier, a story by Lisa Fezig on Procter & Gamble. Business Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer here to talk about changes at the company, change-making international headlines, Bob McDonald now to replace A.G. Lafley. Why did this transition take place now?
Well, they do it in a very thoughtful manner because these transitions are very important to stock price and other things. Lafley's been CEO now for 9 years. He's about to turn 62 years old. So Procter & Gamble wants to make sure that the next generation is in line. Bob McDonald's been vetted now for the last several years. He's had an extremely high-ranking position there, and they think he's ready to go. And again, the biggest thing they need to get through is just make sure that the Wall Street signs off on this. And so far, so good on that front.
What can you tell us about McDonald?
Well, McDonald is a pretty straight-laced guy. He's a West Point grad. He was an Army captain, Boy Scout. He says he's going to try to run a leaner, faster moving company. But you know, Lafley did such a great job that frankly, if McDonald came in and just tried to keep that rolling, I think most people would consider what he does a success.
All right, we'll talk more about him and Lafley's legacy next week here on Business Beat. But let's talk about the front page story by Lisa about some changes that are going on within P&G. Now, some Dayton employees have been moved to Mason, and now there's talk that the operation in Sims Township might move. What's behind that?
Right. Well, IAMS, which is the pet care part of Procter & Gamble, they had a lot of people. They were really based up in Dayton. They're going to move about 250 people down to, as you said, down to Mason. There were about 650 workers at Governor's Hill in Sims Township. Their lease is almost up, so their question is, where are they going to put those people? There is some space at that huge 1.5 million square foot Mason Center where the IAMS people are going, but there are all sorts of options for them. We don't know where they're going to go yet, but that is a big real estate movement in Cincinnati when you take 650 workers and put them somewhere else.
Rob, what goes on at Governor's Hill?
They do order processing for their customers being retailers. They do a lot of technology work there as well. And that facility, they've been there for a long, long time, but again, the lease is up, so it's time for them to look around, and that's why they're making this decision.
Is there any talk about where they might go if they do actually move?
It might be that Mason, 1.5 million square foot Mason Business Center that is still fairly new. It's a huge, beautiful complex they have up north that they had been running a lot of health care out of. That's where the IAMS people are coming down from Dayton to work, and there is some room there, so that's a possibility.
That's no small job moving that many people, so I imagine there's quite a bit of study that goes into this before the decision's made.
Absolutely, and because the market right now, because the commercial real estate market is slower, this is a big deal. A lot of people are going to want to get involved with this. A lot of people are going to be pitching their sites. A lot of people are going to be pitching, hey, we can help move them. There's going to be a lot of activity around this move because just everything's a little slower right now. So anytime you have this many workers at that level with Procter & Gamble potentially moving, it's a big deal.
All right, Rob, next week we'll talk more about that transition at the top of P&G. Thank you. Be sure to read Lisa Fezig's story on the front page of this week's Business Courier. Here's the Courier Greater Cincinnati Stock Index. We tracked the performance of about 40 local stocks compared with the broader market using the Dow Jones Wilshire 5000 Index. A rather uneventful week for stocks. The local index and the overall market each dipped less than 0.5%.